Jack was speaking to a witch doctor when he was visiting Africa. He asked him could he make a voodoo doll, and the witch doctor said, of course, all he would need was the person's clothes and hair to be put on the doll. The witch doctor performed a ritual on the doll to it have the voodoo powers, and all Jack had to do was get the hairs and clothes from whoever it was he wanted the voodoo doll to be. Himself and his wife were visiting Africa with his friend Jerry. Jerry was having an affair with his wife. He knew the voodoo doll would be the perfect revenge, so when Jerry was asleep, he cut some hair from him and took some of his clothes to cut up and put around the doll. He had it planned to burn the doll so Jerry would burn to death. He had the voodoo doll tucked away, safe under his bed, waiting until Jerry was in his room. When Jack tried to put on the light, he realized the electricity must have been off. He took out his lighter and put the doll over a bin and set it alight. He then screamed as he went on fire himself, and Jerry walked into the room holding Jack's diary and said to Jack while he was burning, "Never let your diary lying around if you're planning on killing someone with a voodoo doll. I read all about your plan and knew it would be dark by the time you wanted to do your little voodoo murder. So what I did was cut your hair while you were asleep last night and took some of your clothes and cut off the electricity so you couldn't see how the doll had changed to your clothes instead of mine. So burn in hell, Jack." Let me tell you a story that happened to me one night, and there are others to confirm it also. It was just an ordinary night shift. I normally like working on night shift because I am a bit of a night owl, so I don't mind staying up late at night. But one night things became really strange, and what I mean by strange is an understatement. I mean extraordinarily strange. You will see as you watch the story. Let me start at the beginning. It was a Friday night and I was working the night shift in my local hospital. I was just relaxing in the reception, reading a great book, when suddenly a man burst in the door. He was carrying a woman and shouted, "Help! Help! I saw this woman on the road. She's about to have a baby." I said, "Sir, who is this woman? I need to put her details into the system, but don't worry, we will get her to the labour ward right away." A few minutes later, the lady was put on a stretcher and put into the labour ward. She kept screaming and screaming. The man didn't know who she was, as he just picked her up on the road, and the doctors and nurses couldn't get anything out of her. Suddenly, a photograph fell out of the woman's hand, and it was of her and another woman. There was the name Claire Jackson on the back. I heard them say her name, and out of curiosity and trying to solve the mystery of who the woman was, I researched her. Claire was taken away from her mother due to her mother suffering from delusions of being the Messiah to a dark lord. She was taken away into the asylum, rambling about a satanic ritual performed to summon a dark lord that would be born on November 22nd. I froze when I read that date, as I was reading that article exactly on November the 22nd. Suddenly the screaming grew louder. I ran into the labour ward, and the lady had given birth. The whole hospital got covered in a dark mist. The woman stopped screaming and gave a sinister smile, and the baby looked up at us with bright, red, evil-looking eyes that shone through the dark mist. Now that I've told you the story, let me tell you the weirdest, strangest thing. That woman walked out of the hospital that night with her baby and was never to be seen again. We checked CCTV footage and we were all around the bed where the woman was, but the baby and woman weren't anywhere to be seen on any of the CCTV footage. But we know what we saw, and we know that we didn't imagine it. How could so many of us have imagined it? But the question I ask is, if that baby is a Dark Lord, when will it make its presence known? Every day I worry that the room I'm in will get covered in that black mist. Sarah, Jessie and Judy were walking home from school, and it was just like any other day, except for something bad and sinister in the news once again. Once again, the news about the Japanese urban legend Tiki Kiki was in the spotlight after some poor girl was found murdered and her body sliced straight off at her waist, leaving her bleed to death while her legs lay on the train tracks. The legend began in Japan years and years ago. Nobody knows the exact year, but every so often these horrific murders happen. The Tiki Kiki got its name when a schoolgirl was making her way home from school one day, and she was said to have fallen onto the train tracks, where her body was cut in half by the train. She is known as an onryo, or a vengeful spirit, who lurks in urban areas and around train stations at night. Since the girl has no longer a lower body, she travels on either her hands or elbows, dragging her upper torso and making a scratching sound, or a tiki-tiki-like sound. If the girl comes across an individual, she will chase them and slice them in half at the torso, killing them exactly the way that would mimic her own disfigurement. The girls were chatting about the latest murder. Sarah said, "I know that people are talking about this silly legend Tiki Tiki, but no way is it that girl. It's some serial killer that is copycatting the legend. I bet he will get caught, and then people will see it's just some madman or mad woman," Judy said. "You don't know. It might be that girl. Actually, I believe it is that girl. It has to be. Why else would it be murders pop up every so often? I think we should walk home together from now on. It's not safe for us to be alone. Walking alone in this creepy train station? No way." The girls waited anxiously at the train station. It was extremely quiet, probably due to the fact of the latest news of yet another poor girl having her body cut in two. The train was approaching, and the girls would be happy to get into it and get home. Suddenly, Sarah discovered her phone was missing. She said, "Oh no, my phone." She looked around and spotted it over by a bench. The girls got into the train, and suddenly Sarah was walking towards the door when the doors shut. She screamed as she had a fear overcome her whole body, knowing she'd be all alone in this creepy train station. Suddenly she heard a scratching sound. She put it down to her imagination, hoping it was her imagination, praying it was her imagination. She heard it again. She turned around and she screamed when she saw a girl with no legs crawling along the ground. Suddenly the girl gained speed. Sarah ran and ran, but the girl with no legs used a huge knife to slice Sarah in two. The tiki tiki noise stopped as the girl stopped, smiling down at Sarah, bleeding to death. Siobhan was looking forward to spending Halloween night with her parents and friends Sarah and Lydia. Her parents had to drive home from town first, as they were collecting a new car her dad just bought. Sarah and Lydia were killing the time playing computer games, but they soon got bored. It was then Siobhan decided to get out a Ouija board to them fool around with. She had it as a gift from last Christmas, but didn't play it until now. She knew how to use it though, because of watching people use it in movies. When they were all sitting around the table, Siobhan asked, "Who's there?" The board spelled out, "Siobhan." "Oh no, Siobhan." Siobhan asked, "Are you dead?" The planchet moved around the board, spelling out, "Yes." Then Siobhan asked, "How were you killed?" The board spelled out, "Car accident." Then Siobhan was getting spooked out completely and asked who was this, and the board spelled out, "Your mother." Siobhan sat back shocked while her two friends thought it was some sick joke. Sarah said, "That was sick, Siobhan. Why would you do that? You obviously were moving the thing around the board. Why say that about your own parents?" Siobhan said, "I wasn't messing. That was moving by itself." Siobhan rang her mom and there was no answer. Then she rang her dad. There was no answer. Suddenly there was a knock on the door and Siobhan was hoping it was her parents, but her heart sank when it was the police. Siobhan knew the policeman as he was a friend of her dad's. He had a sad face on him and said, "I am very sorry to break this news to you, Siobhan, but unfortunately your parents were killed in a car accident." Mary was very worried about her 6-year-old daughter Linda. She just sits around for hours and hours drawing, and that might not be so bad, but the drawing she did were always of what looked like monsters or demons. They reminded her of what you'd see kids draw in horror movies. She didn't really pay much attention to it until one day out in the garden, she saw her daughter Linda digging a hole. Initially, Mary thought Linda was playing a game of gardening or something, but she got a start when she saw Linda's doll lying in the hole. She asked her daughter why she was burying her doll, and Linda replied, "Because the boogie man told her." Mary felt a shiver run through her when she heard her daughter say such a weird thing, but she dismissed it, putting it down to maybe a few kids in school were talking about the boogeyman. The next day, Mary saw a teddy bear in a hole in the garden that Linda dug. Mary got angry this time and said, "Linda, don't be so bad bringing that poor teddy out here and putting it in a hole in the garden." Linda got angry and said, "But the boogeyman told me." Mary grabbed the teddy bear from her and shouted to her go into her room. The next day, Mary was out in the garden and she was pleased to see Linda was just playing and looked happy. Mary continued gardening when suddenly she felt something hit her in the back of her head. When she came around, she could see Linda looking down at her. Mary was horrified and said, "Sweetie, what are you doing?" Linda lifted up a shovel and said, "I'm going to bury you in the hole, silly." Mary shouted, "No, no, no," as the shovel hit her head. Linda smiled and said, "But the boogeyman says yes." Lisa started in a new school, but dreaded it as she had very low confidence. She got through her first day, good enough, but dreaded she would become the victim of bullying like in her last school. Lisa moved school because her mom had to move state for a new job. Lisa's dad was living with his new wife, but she was still in contact with him. When Lisa got home, she looked in the mirror and practiced a prep talk to her classmates to try to improve her confidence. She looked in the mirror and said, "Hi, my name is Lisa. It's great to get to meet you all, and I hope we can be best friends. Hi, my name is Lisa. It's great to get to meet you all, and I hope we can be best friends. Hi, my name is Lisa. This town is pretty neat. If you would like to come to my house for the weekend, you are more than welcome. My mom would be very happy to make new friends. Hi, my name is Lisa." Then she sighed and gave up, worried that this new school will end up like the last. She started writing in her diary. "I am so tired of moving from town to town. This is the 4th school I've moved to in the last 5 years, and the last one was the worst. I still get so down and anxious over those awful bullies in that damn school. I really hope that this school will be different. I don't think I'll be able to handle going through all that bullying again." The next day in school, Lisa was about to put her books from her bag into her locker when a couple of the girls walked up to her and one of them said, "Hey Lisa, we have something really cool to show you. It's down in the local park. Do you know where that is?" Lisa smiled and said, "Yeah, sure." The girl said, "Awesome, we will be waiting by the bench near the playground at 5 after school, so we will all be looking forward to see you." Lisa smiled and felt so happy with herself. Things were looking up, and these seemed to be the popular girls in the school, making it even better. When Lisa went home, she gave her usual pep talk in front of her mirror. "Hey girls, thanks so much for inviting me to whatever it is you want to show me. I'm so excited about seeing it. Hey girls, I'm so excited to find out what it is you want to show me. Thanks so much for inviting me." She looked in the mirror, worrying about coming over, too excited about being asked to meet them. When she met them at 5 by the bench, they were all around the bench smiling. One of the girls told her, "Just look behind that tree. It's so awesome." Lisa felt excited and curious what it was they meant. When she got behind the tree, there was a tripwire set off a bucket of slime, which fell all over her, covering her in slime. The girls laughed and walked off. One of them said, "Oh my God, she is so lame." Lisa started crying, afraid that she was going to be bullied as well in this school. When she went home, she looked in the mirror, but didn't know what to say this time. She froze when she saw her reflection started speaking to her. "Don't let those bitches get to you, girl. Don't let them bullies get you down. You're better than them." Lisa could not believe it. Then the reflection continued. "You don't be weak now. You do want to teach them a lesson, don't you?" The reflection kept saying over and over, "Don't you? Don't you? Don't you?" until Lisa screamed, "Yes, yes, yes!" With that, the reflection changed places with Lisa, and Lisa was in the mirror, now looking out, in shock at her reflection, which was in her room, and grinning in a sinister way. When Lisa looked around her, she couldn't see anything but black. The next day, Lisa's reflection was walking around just as Lisa would be. She looked like Lisa. She walked like Lisa. To everyone else, she was Lisa. She walked into the school swimming pool, where the girls were practicing for their swimming contest. Lisa picked up a radio that was near the pool and threw it in, electrocuting the girls. Their coach screamed and the police were rang. 5 minutes later, Lisa fell out of her mirror, not knowing what happened, until the police arrived at her door to arrest her for murdering the girls. When she was sitting alone in the police interrogation room, she looked at herself in her phone camera and saw her reflection talking back at her. "Well, I taught them wretched girls a lesson. You can go back to being yourself now." Lisa's reflection didn't ever speak back to her since.